Okay, so here's today's victim, and sorry for the noise in the background, but I got a washer and dryer going behind me. I'm in my my basement shop here to do this without freezing my butt off. So what we have here is a blower housing from a 2000 Lennox LGA 088. Bottom bearing blew, cocked the shaft, took out the bearing mount, took out the blower wheel. Housing is a little scarred on this side, but nothing, it's still intact, everything is fine. I called Lennox, and the only thing that they have in stock is the blower wheel and one bearing. The other bearing they can get really quick. The shaft, the only place that they have the shaft is in Canada, and it was going to take me like over a week to get. And then they told me that these bearing mounts are discontinued and they don't make anymore, and they can't match it with anything that they have. Why, I don't know, but they said basically they're not available, you're SOL. So that being said, I could try to get things online and see if I can find the actual part numbers, get them shipped, but I need this unit up and running. I need to get heat in this building. It's going to be in the single digits the next couple of days. Right now they're surviving with one unit running, and kind of got it cranked with some extra fans to blow air into the dining room of this restaurant. And I don't want to leave it that way for very long. If anything happens to that kitchen unit, then they're screwed. So went down to good old Central Fan, which, if you guys need anything fan related, their go-to source. They'll have everything you need. So what I have now, they didn't have any kind of bracket that would be able to fit on this. The two that they carry, one was too big, one was too small. So I can't set it up with the regular bearings that they have. But what we have is we have these mounts in pillow block bearings. So it's a little overkill, but what we're going to do is line up our shafts, get this sucker in there, put a pillow block bearing in there, new wheel, new shaft, two new bearings, two new bearing mounts, and I got a new pulley for S&Gs. The one in there is a little worn. Figured if we have it all apart, might as well just put a new pulley on it too. So what I've done so far is just cut the two sides of the shaft. I cut this side here, and cut this side in here too. So now that squirrel cage there is just floating. We can take off this bearing block. Let's pull that out. Put these in so we don't lose them. We're not going to need them, but we might be able to use them for alignment. Then switch it around. It's missing the screw. That one's still in place. Yeah, a little slice in there, but you know, we'll roll with it. And you can see that's not right. I can't even. Alright. We're gonna have to get the BFH here. Give that a little bit of adjustment. Sufficiently adjusted. That is not sufficiently adjusted. Fixed. Okay, so now what we want to do, this is the exact way that this is going to sit in the unit. So I want my bearings to be, they're going to have to be at this angle here, just because of this to clear it. Can't have them perfectly level. So now what we want to do is find the center of this circle, which is a little tough, but we have the original mounts here that make a triangle. So what we can do is go at one point of our triangle, which is actually conveniently in the direction we want to be pointed, and we can measure from that's tenths, hundredths, 30 seconds, and 60 volts. Alright, so we can measure from here to the center of this hole here, which ends up being pretty darn close. Yeah, I'm gonna call that. It's pretty close to 11 3/4, as makes no difference. So, what we want to do is take a string, and we're going to divide that by 2. So half of 11 3/4 is half of 3/4, and half of that 5 1/2. 5 1/2 plus 3/8 is 7/8. So 5 7/8. Right about there. I'm going to mark that center line. So what we want is our pillow block to end up in the middle of that, or as close to the middle as possible. Now there is some tolerance here. Usually they'll say on the inside of the bearing, so these happen to be the bearings here. Okay, so let's put them up. And inside the box usually is all the info. And this says right here, 1.5 plus or minus 1.5 degrees. So they'd be 1.5 degrees off of alignment. So we can't just slap this right on there. What we have to do is make sure our bearing is on center line. So we have to get the difference between this center line and the center height of this bearing. So let me measure that. Okay, so looking online, the center height of that is 1 7/16. So we're going to go mark 1 7/16 down from that line there, which is 1 inch. And 7/16, and then we'll mark 1 7/16 down from the center of this hole. Okay, so we got it clamped in place. That line is in the middle because that's in the middle of this, middle of the holes. I made another line that was half the distance of this on the top, so we got it all lined up. We're just going to idiot check ourselves and see if we're right. So from here, yeah, pretty much, that's tenths, with 16, 30 seconds, it's right here. Inch and, we'll call it around 3/8. And then here, we have 1 inch and 3/8. So there's our center. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to make sure that I'm centered this direction here. We do have adjustment side to side a little bit, so I don't have to be perfect, but what I'm going to do is just measure off from here to the end and here to the end. We're going to get them equal. I'll clamp it in place and then we can drill those holes. Okay, so we got this in place. I got it pretty well lined up center where I want it, and now we're just going to drill these holes. Hopefully without a move. Alright, just stick a screw in there so it doesn't move. And then we'll drill that one. Alrighty. Okay. So now we got to mirror the other side. Now that we got those two blocks mounted, what we're going to do is pop our squirrel cage inside the housing. Like so. I'm going to get the plate, which is over here. There we go. These holes here. That's one. That's two. Okay. So now we're going to get this sucker right side up, and we can put, actually we can put the shaft in the way it is, actually. So you get the shaft, and our pulley actually we're going to feed in from this side because our pulley is going to live over here. So let me get the shaft. Okay, so this is a fully keyed shaft, so it doesn't really matter where anything sits. We're going to get our bearing in place. wheel started. Actually, that slides in pretty good. So you can just use the old one as a guide to figure out how much I have to have at least sticking out of the other side for my bearing mount. And this is 4 or 5 inches. I actually think we'll leave it right like that. And it gives me 5 inches on that side. I got a little bit of extra on here, but when we slide this in the unit, we have plenty of clearance, so I'm not particularly worried about that. Now all we need to do is just make sure that we have our centered in here. We're definitely not binding, and we look actually pretty good. So what I want to do is I'll snug this one up. And then this one here has to go back a little bit. Just a hair, not even that much. Like right there. That's where it wants to go. So, try to get you a view in there. What I'm doing is looking at this wheel, and I'm looking at the spaces on both sides and measuring up against the wall, and seeing if this. I noticed that this block bearing has to go back to right there by like, I don't know, maybe 1/4 of an inch, and then we're golden there. And it doesn't bind up when I do that, so I have that much play in it. So, very simply just go ahead and bring that bearing back. That looks pretty good there. That looks pretty damn good actually. Okay, snug that up. Now I'm going to put my shaft key in there for my blower. Okay, I'm looking side to side here. Sorry, I have to get my head in the way. That looks pretty good there. Oh, I pushed the key in too far. There we go. Just make sure I got the right size. I'm pretty sure I did. Yep. Alrighty. So, looks pretty good there. And tighten that down on that key just by hand. And we are going to slip the other key into here. Tighten that down by hand. And give her a spin. That's actually pretty good. That's actually pretty damn straight. Alright, I am happy with that. So, don't want to lock down my key yet. What I want to do first, okay, before I lock down this blower, what I want to do is put in the bearing locks. So they're eccentric, okay? So what you do is you put them on, they'll turn them until they slide in flat, right there, hold the bushing, or the lock nut, and then turn the shaft in the direction it would rotate until that lock nut stops, and then tighten down your set screw.
I just want to get the power off downstairs. Let me run down and turn the power on. You're on. Thermostat set too, so they had it at 80. Beautiful. Yeah.
Correct that raccoon.
A little flinchy.
Hang on. Hey. It's good. Oi. Call him.
Oh, there must be a delay on the thermostat. I was going to say, because I got a call. Oh, shit. They're going to fucking love you. They're going to love you, man. Absolutely love you.
Out of the bearing.
I would get money for this. Where are you? I see the plan.
That's lit all through.